Hi, everyone. Thanks for coming in on this rainy morning. I was remarking to an usher on the way in. I don't know whether rain on a Sunday morning means that people say, oh, I'm not going to go to church, it's raining. Or if they say, oh, well, all the plans I had for today are messed up, so I might as well go to church. But thank you for being here. I was going to ride my bicycle this morning, and then I stepped outside, and it was wet, so I didn't. Thank you all for making it here. We'll start our service, as we've been doing recently, in an encouragement to have people speak up, be vulnerable with one another about their sorrows, to also be sharing of their joys. We have a card that's been lit here, for a candle to be lit here. And let's see, I'm going to have you do the rest of the lighting since we don't have cards for everybody. And this one is, I think it was Susan who wrote this one. Please light a candle for the people in Mississippi who are dealing with the tornado aftermath. Yes, very definitely. Natural disaster. Other joys, sorrows. Tricia.
Kevin is dealing with strep throat, so I hope that he recovers quickly.
So I will light a candle for Kevin Lausch, who's dealing with strep throat and is not here to read the story he picked out for this morning. I'll do that story instead. Thanks, Tricia. Others. Elizabeth.
Hi, Elizabeth Thompson. I'd like to light a candle of concern and support for a friend of mine in Asheville whose transgender son tried to commit suicide on Tuesday and was almost successful. And it's just thinking about trans rights and also just thinking about what trans kids go through. And part of his struggle is not having full support from both parents.
So for a candle for Elizabeth's friend in Asheville who has a trans son who tried and was almost successful in suicide. John.
A candle of joy for granddaughter Willow, who celebrates her 13th birthday on Tuesday.
Congratulations to Willow, who's turning 13 this week. I will ask for one more generically lit in advance of March 31st, Trans Visibility Day. Our congregation, being a welcoming congregation and having done the renewal, recognizes the many different calendar dates for LGBTQ folks as a part of our overall welcome and embrace of folks all in our midst. Thank you. Let's keep the memory of these candles going, and also let's go ahead and greet one another. For those of you who are new here, you don't necessarily have to touch the person next to you, but it's nice of you if you want to in some way show a reverent appreciation of the worth and value of the person next to you at this time. It is good to be with one another It is good to recognize the inherent worth and dignity of each person. Again, welcome to everyone. Ours is a congregation that welcomes folks of all different backgrounds, whoever you love, however you identify. This is a place where we embrace diversity. We have diverse thoughts. We have diverse ways of looking at life. We come from life from many different directions to this one place in which we approach religion and values with an open-mindedness and a support for one another. It's a unique place in a world that is so divisive. And we're glad that this place exists, and we're glad that you honor it by your presence here. We had a few announcement slides up there. I'll highlight that Easter's coming up, and there's a chance during the hunt that there could be things to give away. The old-fashioned egg hunt is not necessarily outward directed in the way our mission would have us do. And so we ask that you think of things to help with the folks who are organizing that for the Children's Religious Exploration Team, that there are things, packaged goods that can be easily found and then brought off to to be donated so that others who do not have can have. We'll enjoy that Easter Sunday. That's just 2 weeks from now, but think ahead. Oh yeah, bring some canned goods or boxed juices or some other things. I'm going to skip for any other announcements because I think they are all rotating in what they're doing. Unless somebody here says, no, Bob, you promised, and I forgot to say an announcement for you. No? I will say that I have written some letters to folks saying, did you forget to send in your pledge? But I very carefully wanted to say in that letter, if there's anyone here who has a problem making a contribution to the congregation, talk to your minister about it. I really do want to be able to see what's up and know ways in which we are there for you. Thank you. I turn this over to our worship associate, Janice Cannon. Was there something else? Oh, we have a testimonial. Now, I have down that Kristen was doing it, but I saw that there was a video prepped to go. So, Kristen, are we going with the video? That's supposed to be next week? Okay. So, Kristen, would you come up and do your testimonial, and you all will just know there's a video coming. So, come on up, Kristen. Thank you, Janice, for pointing out. I skipped the order of service again. No.
Hi. Sorry. I think you'll enjoy, I have to tell you to come back next week because you're going to enjoy the testimonial a lot more than you're going to enjoy me. Because I have this hat, like the hat I'm wearing at the moment is, I'm a member of this congregation, and I love it here. And the best reason to support the pledge drive is because we're a self-funded church, and we need to know what the budget can be, and since everybody has to chip in to help make that budget, it would be nice to know what it would be. So please pledge. And now I'm going to wear the other hat. I'm a retired fundraising professional from New York City. And I have a few tricks up my sleeve. But your wallets are safe. They're still in your control. I don't have any way to reach in there and take anything. But I hope to give you some ideas today because there's 2 deadlines coming. The pledge drive deadline, which is supposed to be March 31st, but guess what? We're giving you until Sunday, April 2nd. So, because we know a lot of you drop off your pledges on Sunday, so you have till April 2nd to do that. And the other deadline is tax day. Hey, so I thought I'd talk today to some of you who are looking for ways to donate that help you with your taxes. Why not? Most of us, when we think about supporting charities, we look in our income stream. And we're like, okay, food, rent, mortgage, blah. Charity, okay, I'll squeeze this much out. That's fine. That's a good way to do it. Most people do it that way. But if you have assets somewhere else, not everybody does, but if you do, you might think of a few other things that I'm going to remind you of today. If you are 70 and a half years old, you can reach into, you're going to be required to take a distribution from your IRA, your 403B, your 401K, all those, that whole alphabet soup of retirement things. And you can actually direct your trustee to send some of that money that you maybe don't need for yourself to the UUTC. And it goes tax-free. It's not taxed. Most distributions from your retirement are taxable if it's given to you. But if you give it to us or any other charity, it's not taxed. And there's a way to report that. And you probably have smart people who tell you how to do that, or some software. But it's called a Qualified Charitable Distribution, QCD. So, and it's because it's tax-free, it might actually let you give more, because the IRS and, Uncle Sam in North Carolina are not going to take a chunk out of that. So if you give 70 cents to UUTC, if you give out of your IRA, but you have to have a few gray hairs to do this, 70 and a half, or a spouse who's 70 and a half, you can give the whole buck. Isn't that nice? So think about that, if that's an option for you. If you're paying taxes on appreciated securities like stock or any other appreciated security, and you can donate that directly. You can donate stock to UUTC, and then you would not have to pay tax on that stock's appreciation value. What else can I tell you? If you have ever heard, if someone's ever handed you a card at your brokerage firm or your IRS telling you that they're in wealth management, you'll know that there's a thing called a donor advised fund, where people who have more than they need can sometimes set aside a chunk into a fund. There's minimums required and so on, but for some people, that's an option. And then that's another way to set aside charitable dollars that are not taxable. And then it's just another account. It's a charitable checkbook that you can write from. So if that's available to you, or if you haven't set that up and you think you can, you might want to talk to your advisor. And then if you ever worked for a larger corporation or have retired from a larger corporation, you may know, or you may not know, that they might have a matching gift program. So any dollars you donate to charity can be matched by that corporate employer or your former corporate employer. If that's something you think or vaguely remember was a benefit when you were hired, don't forget about that, because that will sometimes double or even triple your dollars to UTC. So that's it. And I'm just going to say, putting my congregational hat back on, that I think that if we all do what we can, nobody's asking you to do anything you can't do. Take care of yourself first. But if you can, and you should, because to whom much is given, much is expected. And the Jewish gleaner story tells you that no matter how big your cucumber field, if it's an acre or a quarter of an acre, or half an acre, or even a little plot of land, you have to set up a tiny corner for the gleaners. So please pledge by deadline, and we want to hear from everybody, because we need everybody to keep this place here. If you can't, don't. Just let us know that you can't. And then, but those of you who can, please pledge, because it's important that we're here for generations to come When I moved to Brevard, I ticked off the music center, tick. I ticked off the beautiful library, tick. The little cute little walkable town. And there was a UU church here too. So we want to be here now and forevermore for those ahead of us. Thank you.
Thank you, Kristen. This morning, our opening words are by Amy Brooks, and it's been adapted. And it is a responsive reading, but your only response will be, "We bear witness," when there is a pause. We people gathered here today on the quest for truth and meaning bear witness. We bear witness. In these times of heightened anxiety, we who are gathered here today reject teachings of division and ignorance and commit to siding with love against hatred. We bear witness. Against close-minded ideologies that excuse evil acts in the name of religion, we bear witness. Against any group or individual that seeks to fuel their rise to power by threatening the lives of transgender, queer gender, and non-binary people, we bear witness. Against systematic power structures that treat transgender, gender, queer, and non-binary people, particularly those who are people of color, as being anything less than human, we bear witness. On this day, we who are queer folk and allies gather together, uphold the first principle that speaks to the inherent worth and dignity of every person. We bear witness. For those transgender, genderqueer, and non-binary people who are gathered among us today, we bear witness. For those who are allied to the cause of protecting our transgender, genderqueer, and non-binary siblings, we bear witness. For those who exist boldly and unapologetically in public spaces as fully authentic transgender, genderqueer, and non-binary people, we bear witness. Sacred, transgender, genderqueer, and non-binary lives do not go unnoticed by us. We bear witness. Come, let us worship together. Our opening hymn is number 1023, and it's called Building Bridges. It's a round, and Reverend Bob will tell you how we're going to do that.
So we're going to have John help us sing it through once, and then I think we're going to do, we have 3 sections. Maybe we could try 3 sections of it. 1, 2, 3. All right, and if you think your section needs the most help, raise your hand, and I'll come running over and sing with you. All right, Elizabeth, I'm pre-warned.
Bob, I bet Jean could help with one section if we need 3.
Sure, Jean can sing out from the back. It'll carry all the way through your section.
She can come up and lead.
Come on, Jean.
Yeah.
I knew you were itching to do this.
Building bridges between our divisions. I reach out to you, will you reach out to me? With all of our voices and all of our visions, friends, we could make such sweet harmony. Building bridges between our divisions. I reach out.
Building bridges
Will you
between
reach
between our divisions. I
with
reach
all
out
of our
to you.
voices
You
and all
reach out
of our
to me.
visions.
With all of our
Friends, we
voices
could make such
and
sweet
all of your
harmony,
visions.
building bridges between our divisions.
Building bridges between
reach
our
out to me.
divisions.
With
I
all
reach out
of
to
our
you.
voices
You
and all
reach out
of our
to me.
visions.
With
Friends,
all
we
of our
could make
visions
such
and
sweet
all of our
harmony.
visions. Friends, we make such sweet harmony.
Thank you, Janice and Jean and John and all the singers.
Our chalice lighting is in the words of Stephen Stock. We light this chalice to celebrate the inherent worth and dignity of every person.
To
We
reaffirm the historic pledge of liberal religion and to seek that justice which transcends mere legality and moves toward the resolution of true equality, and to share that love which is ultimately beyond even our cherished reason, that love which unites us. As I said, Kevin is ill. We will be reading the story that he picked out specially for this particular day, and it's called My Shadow is Purple by Scott Stewart. My dad has a shadow that's blue as a berry, and my mom's is as pink as a blossoming cherry. There's only those choices, a 2 or a 1, but mine is quite different. It's both and it's none. If theirs are straight, then mine is a circle, for my shadow's different. My shadow's purple. My shadow loves playing with all sorts of toys, things loved by girls and things loved by boys. I dance with the pinks as they turn and they spin, and I play sport with the blues as they lose and they win. Some of my friends think I'm simply confused, but the thing I love most is not having to choose. Some tell me I'm blue, only blue can be strong, but my mom's strong too, so I think they're wrong. Some tell me I'm pink because pink's the most caring, but Dad's always crying and loving and sharing. Why can't I love sport and dancing and trains and ponies and glitter and engines and planes? Why must I choose and exclude all the rest? I love choosing both because both is the best. And now it's time for the greatest event. The invite's been sent. I'm ready to rock and I'm feeling cute. My mom made me my skirt and my dad made my suit. I bounce through the door and I gasp as I enter. The room split in two right down the center. The blue shadows go left, the pink shadows right. Once we're split up, we'll kickstart this night, says the teacher. Everyone laughs as they head to their zones. And right in the middle, I'm left all alone. I look to the left where the shadows are blue. They wave me over saying, "You are blue too." Then I look to the right as I struggle to think. They call me over, "Come on, you are pink." The teacher walks up looking rather amused. "I know you're different, but now you must choose." My heart just starts racing and tears fill my eyes. I know I must choose, but I don't understand why. The room has gone quiet and everyone's looking. My cheeks are so red, they feel like they're cooking. If I cannot be purple, then I cannot stay. I'll have to leave and go home, I quietly say. I slowly start walking. My legs are like jello. A voice breaks the silence. "My shadow's yellow." My eyes open wide. My shadow, it gawks. The child walks to the middle and looks up and talks. There's more than 2 colors our shadows can be. I was too scared before, but blue is not me. I know from outside blue fits like a glove, but my shadow's yellow, which to me feels like love. They turn with a smile and take hold of my hand. "Who wants to join us? There's room here to stand." At first, no one moves. Then a hand's in the air. "My shadow's as brown as a big grizzly bear." My shadow is red. Mine's silver. Mine's green. Mine's violet. Mine's orange. Mine's aquamarine. They all rush to join us, whatever their color, blue, pink, and purple, and shadows called other. I look at each shadow. No 2 are the same. On each happy face, there's no trace of shame. Each different and special and fully unique. No color's stronger and no color's weak. The teacher comes over as we've joined as one. "Whatever your color, start dancing, have fun." And that's the end of our story. And KT, I understand. Yeah, worth an applause. Thank you, Kevin, for getting that through the interlibrary loan. The North Carolina library system can get you lots of good things, like books like these. KT, come on up. If you and a parent want to come too, that's fine. I'll let you hold this candle. Do you want to come all the way to the front over here? that easier? If you hold on to that, I'll get the flame for you.
Use your thumbs, please.
Peace be with you and our blessing. Peace be with you and our blessing. Peace be with you and our blessing as you leave us now. We've talked about love. We've talked about the importance of being together. We've talked about pledging. We're going to hear about budgets. I think the most important piece of this is the way they all weave together as a reflection of something that's beyond the self outreach, a sacrifice in a way. Even in this one ritual, as a basket is passed, the idea that every little bit that we do out of goodwill towards others helps support a world and a vision that we'd prefer to have. It helps us stretch beyond our own selfishness every time we do it. So as the ushers bring you the baskets, please remember the selflessness, the ability that we have as human beings to give and support beyond our own limited selves. We will now greatly receive the morning offering. Thank you, Dick. Thank you, Susan. For all that's given in love, we say thank you. I ask you at this time to center yourselves in the ways that you find ritually important and satisfactory to come into this time of prayer and meditation. Spirit of love and life, we who are gathered here on this rainy morning come knowing that we will find shelter, safety from the rain, safety from the storms, safety from the dangers to our health. We have a candle lit this morning, and we pray for those who are not safe, who no longer have a shelter, those in Mississippi in particular who are dealing with the tornado aftermath. We have a candle lit this morning for the family with their trans son who tried suicide, knowing that our society in this time is giving messages which are damaging to the mental health of those who do not turn out with the shadows that we thought they would turn out with in their gender identities. May we build the loving circles, not just in our prayers, but in every walk of our life, to make all feel loved, accepted, whole, and worthy. Our hearts go out to those who are ill, who are not here this morning because of their illnesses, chronic or acute, in this moment. In particular, our candle this morning for Kevin Lausch, who has strep. Our hearts go out to him and his family. Our prayers do not just dwell on the sorrows that we share, but the joys as well. Spirit of love and life, we welcome into our midst this week a new teenager, Willow, and all those who are celebrating another birthday, even if they would not mention the year aloud. These, the prayers of our hearts and the thoughts of our minds, we hold now in this silence. In the names of all those known and unknown, remembered and forgotten, in the names of all the helpers of humankind, we say, Amen, blessed be. I ask you to remain seated as we sing together our prayerful hymn number 123, Spirit of Life. The words will be on the screen. The reading this morning that I've chosen is one that I've used before, and we'll probably use again. This reading is going to be not said literally. No, here it is, found it. The parable of the Good Samaritan. This is in particular from a translation I don't usually use, but it works for this particular parable. This is from the Good News Bible. A teacher of the law came up and tried to trap Jesus. "Teacher," he asked, "what must I do to receive eternal life?" Jesus answered him, "What do the scriptures say? How do you interpret them?" The man answered, "Love the Lord God with all your heart, with all your soul, and all your strength, and with all your mind. And love your neighbor as you love yourself." "You're right," said Jesus. "Do this and you will live." But the teacher of the law wanted to justify himself, so he asked Jesus, "Who is my neighbor?" And Jesus answered, "There was once a man who was going down from Jerusalem to Jericho when robbers attacked him, stripped him, and beat him up, leaving him half dead. It also happened that a priest was going down the road, but when he saw the man, he walked by on the other side. In the same way, a Levite also came there and went down over and looked at the man and then walked on the other side as well. But a Samaritan who was traveling that way came upon the man, and when he saw him, his heart was filled with pity. And he went over to him, and he poured oil and wine on his wounds and bandaged them, and then he put the man on his own animal and took him to an inn, where he took care of him. And the next day he took out 2 silver coins and gave them to the innkeeper. "Take care of him," he told the innkeeper, "and when I come back this way, I'll pay you whatever else you spend on him." And Jesus concluded with this question: "In your opinion, which one of these 3 acted like a neighbor towards the man attacked by the robbers?" And the teacher of the law answered, "The one who was kind to him." And Jesus replied, "You go then and do the same." Thank you, Janice, for those lovely music videos. Once a month we get the special treat. This is our last sermon on the topic of vulnerability. And it's the Sunday before Trans Visibility Day. Joseph Biden is the first president to have recognized this day, even though it has been recognized by others for a couple decades now, it seems. I got this special flag, trans rights are human rights, in order to lift up this day. And I also wanted to do this because if you're not already somewhat concerned about your own rights, you need to realize that the hate that we have in society is like a virus, and it jumps from human to human. And the people who are spreading that hate may say it's only directed at this one small population. Surely we can direct hate this way. But the problem with viruses in human society is that it jumps to everybody. None of us are safe so long as we do not stand up for those who are being bullied and attacked and demeaned. So in this way, this sermon in our month of talking about vulnerability is to remind us we are, no matter how we identify, we are all vulnerable when hate is being spread. But for a more upbeat note to start this out, how many of you have ever Googled the best trans movies to stream right now? 17 Magazine has a whole list of these movies, movies you can stream right now. How many of you have ever Googled, tell me the most famous trans accountant? Your minister has done so. It's in my browser history, and I'm proud to have looked that up, and I did not find the most famous accountant who happens to be trans. But I did find, here, let's go with this. Who did I find? Let's see. A few great individuals. And here's one. Martine Rothblatt. Now, okay, when you go with famous, like, CEOs and stuff like that, it's like, how many of you know the names of lots of CEOs out there anyway? But Martine Rothblatt is the founder and CEO of United Therapeutics, a medical biotechnology company, a lawyer, formerly launched several satellite communications companies, and is credited with creating Satellite Communications Radio, being the former chief executive officer of GeoStar and the creator of Sirius XM satellite radio in 1990. Also developed electric helicopters, is a philanthropist, and has been often named as the highest paid female CEO in the country and the pharmaceutical industry, and is transgender. Trans visibility, folks. You ever want to look up things like this, queerbio.com has a lot of good stuff like this. Let's go for some other fun ones here. How about Brian Michael Smith? You know Brian Michael Smith? All right. Smith became the first out trans man to be included in People's annual issue focusing on the sexiest man alive. Smith is featured as part of People's list of 10 of the sexiest firefighters on TV right now. Well, howdy, partner, people wrote about Smith at the time. The 911 Lone Star star was one of People's ones to watch in 2021 and will definitely not have a hard time keeping an eye on him, which I believe was the caption under a picture of him shirtless, posing in front of a fire truck with a firefighter's helmet on. All right, let's go on. What movies might you watch? Last night, Christy and I streamed the movie on Amazon Prime starring Eva Raines that came out in this past year called Anything's Possible. It's about current day teenagers back in school after the pandemic and learning how to love and interact and getting ready to write their college application essays and deal with senior year. Eva Raines, young, black, transgender girl, star of that movie, playing a transgender girl in high school. There's another one out there that I remember from 2014, Boy Meets Girl, starring Michelle Hendley, another trans woman featured in a movie about a trans woman's life, young woman. That one I think you can get at the DVD at the Transylvania Public Library. At least as of this morning, it was still available if you want to check it out. For those of you who don't stream but can put a disc in your thing and watch it. We also know that over the decades, transgender individuals have been elected to public office in larger numbers, although we can say, as they do on Wikipedia, the increases have been slow. And election means visibility to those who are out. It means visibility to those in the community to say, oh, there are people out there who have risen to being what they wanted to be. We in this congregation have done a few things to help lift up visibility. I've now run for 3 times, maybe 4, the pronouns workshop here. Why is it important that I wear this pronouns button as much as possible? Because for folks saying that their pronouns aren't necessarily obvious when we greet them, to know that the minister of this congregation says, hey, I'm Bob, I use he, him pronouns, means that they, if they wish, could say their pronouns to clarify and be visible in what otherwise might be invisible. I know that in all 3 of my decades of serving as a Unitarian Universalist minister, that UU congregations have been a place in which people can outwardly transition. It used to be required that a person, and may still be in some ways, a person try social transitioning first before medical transitioning. And this meant that coming to church in clothing that would not be what they were wearing to work that week was something where this was completely welcome and acceptable here. Every congregation I've served has had people of whatever genders, blue, pink, purple, yellow, brown, red, all of the colors, all of the understandings, membership, leadership, inclusion in all of the congregations. This is visibility. And this is a part of what fights back against hate and problems. Now, we have legislation out there that's supposedly to protect children. Let us protect children by not talking about gender until at least after the 4th grade. The state that got the copycat law fixed first into law, Florida, is now on the 2nd step. All right, now let's extend that up to 12th grade, including the 18-year-old adults in high school. That's on the docket now. Guess what happens after you get to the 18-year-olds, folks? It means that it's going to spread even further. We can't talk about it. We can't have visibility. Maybe we could say that the website that shows these trans folks and their visibility, these famous folks who have succeeded in their life path, maybe we could have that blocked in schools. Maybe the laptops that those students bring home from school to do their homework can be used to find the visibility that they need in order to survive the feelings and the thoughts and the feelings of being alone in a system that often says blues on this side of the room and pinks on this side, and find themselves unable, if they are non-binary, gender queer, to know where they are. Or those who are identified and are required to be identified, no, your birth certificate says blue, go to blue, even though they would more comfortably fit pink. We need to watch out for the ways in which the virus of hate spreads from something that seems small and then grows and affects all. And there was an article in the Texas Tribune this week by Maya Spoto. There was a study in Pediatrics magazine of over 300 trans folks over 5 years, showed the fallacy of the idea that if you allow a child to transition, you have the danger that they will want to retransition. They want to go back. That there's a danger, you shouldn't let them do it. The study showed that fallacy, that only 2.5% had retransitioned to the gender they'd been assigned at birth. And the most common issue being that it didn't cause the social relief that they were looking for. Well, yeah, society keeps ramping up the pressure on that one, doesn't it? And this can be because of the anti-trans discrimination and unsupportive families, for example. Somebody asked, is there a trans agenda? And trans folks replied jokingly, we have an agenda. That is to live. Because it's dangerous being trans in America, in South America, in the world. It's dangerous. But there are ways to help save folks. I'm to the side, I'm blocking our chalice because I don't want to block the pretty flowers or the banner. But our chalice is glowing real strong in this message. Transgender youth who take puberty blockers are significantly less likely to experience lifelong suicidal ideation than those who want the care and don't get it. And study shows psychological trauma is reduced and life satisfaction increases when people who want transition-related hormone therapy get it. Life-saving. Talk about vulnerability. Vulnerability. Life-saving. If you had a medicine that could be taken that would reduce the chance of suicide, would you want politicians arguing whether or not you should get it? Or whether or not your child should get it? Our candle this morning for the nearly successful suicide attempt of a trans youth lifts up the fallacies of the arguments that it's dangerous to allow human beings who know who they are to get the medical assistance they need. Manufactured vulnerability is what I look at it as. Doesn't have to be this way. If we know there are medicines, if we know there are ways in which we can talk love instead of hate, why is it that somehow we have to have copycat bills? The workshop I just took from the UUA this month, some 400 bills introduced this legislative season across America. Why? Why do we have to have this manufactured vulnerability, literal vulnerability of life and death in the ways in which our laws might be made to say this group doesn't get what scientifically, medically we know is proven to reduce suicide. This group does not get to use the restroom. This group does not. How is it that we manufacture a vulnerability for trans girls not being able to play in sports? And can you count the number of times a trans person has swung the results? Do you know of the number of times? How does that relate to the death penalty, for example, in terms of statistics? The Equal Justice Initiative says that 1 in 8 death penalty convictions are overturned. And maybe we should look at racism in that statistic specifically. In general, misconduct by police or prosecutors or both was involved in 79% of homicide exonerations in 2018. That's from the National Registry of Exonerations. Official misconduct is more common in death penalty cases, especially if the defendant is black. Data shows that 87% of black exonerees who were sentenced to death were victims of official misconduct. We have laws against that misconduct. We could have a whole lot of ways of making sure that we were focused on an issue that has a numeric significance rather than the number of trans girls who have won a track meet, which is numerically insignificant. We had a reading from the Bible that says, "Who is my neighbor?" And I'm going to close this service with a quote from Martin Luther King, a good long one, about that whole "who is my neighbor" and who was on that path. But before I get there, I want to get to 1 Corinthians 13, often read at weddings. My colleague, David Breeden, wrote a blog post on Medium on Valentine's in 2018. He's a poet. He's a senior minister at First Unitarian Society, Minneapolis, which is a humanist congregation. And he was talking about the biblical story, or the biblical quote in 1 Corinthians, Paul writing about faith, hope, and love. And he said that humanists agree with this poetic passage. There are indeed 3 things that stay with us: belief in something, hope for something, and love of others. You remember that? Faith, hope, and love, these 3. And the greatest of these is what? Love. And he lifts up the translation, meaning the selfless love is the highest of these. In the King James Version, it's not faith, hope, and love. It's faith, hope, and charity, to try to get it to translate to that selfless love. Belief in something, hope for something, and love for others. Where's the self in this? Well, that's the point. The self believes, the self hopes, but that's mere preparation for the self to ultimately disappear into love for others. Folks, I grew up in a humanist UU congregation, and that is the foundation. It doesn't matter whether I believe in God the day I wake up and pray to God. What matters is that I understand the ethics of these teachings, that we must love. And we must love in a way that is visible, because people are vulnerable, and if we cannot live with love, with our voice visibly, we are not doing enough. I'm going to distill this sermon down into a letter to the editor to the Transylvania Times. Maybe that's your thing too. I'm worried because I hear people say, "What, you wrote to the Transylvania Times? I saw that. Have you been harassed? Have you been trolled? Are you in danger?" Right, because maybe our values don't fit all the time. So now we're in danger. Listen to Martin Luther King Jr. and what he has to say to that. This is an excerpt from his "I've Been to the Mountaintop" speech. By the way, we're coming up on what? The 55th anniversary of that speech this April. The last speech before he died, the day before he died. One day, he says, the man came to Jesus and asked the trick question and show him that he knew more than Jesus knew and throw him off base. I'm paraphrasing the first part of what Martin Luther King said. But Jesus immediately, here I'll quote, Jesus immediately pulled that question from midair and placed it on a dangerous curve between Jerusalem and Jericho. And he talked about a certain man who fell among thieves. And you remember that a Levite and a priest passed by on the other side and did not stop to help him. And finally, a man of another race came by. He got down from his beast, decided not to be compassionate by proxy. He got down with him, administered first aid, and helped the man in need. Jesus ended up saying this was the good man. This was the great man because he had the capacity to project the I into the thou and to be concerned about his brother. Original gendered language from Martin Luther King Jr. Now, you know, said Martin Luther King Jr. to going on there, we use our imagination a great deal to try to determine why the priest and the Levite didn't stop. At times we say, oh, they were busy going to a church meeting, an ecclesiastical gathering. They had to go down to Jerusalem so they wouldn't be late for their meeting. So they didn't stop. Other times we had to speculate there was a religious law that the one who was engaged in religious ceremonials was not to touch a human body 24 hours before the ceremony. All right. And every now and then we begin to wonder whether maybe they were not going down to Jerusalem or down to Jericho, rather to organize a Jericho Road Improvement Association. Yeah, his audience laughed at that one too. That's a possibility. Maybe they felt it was better to deal with the problem from the causal root rather than to get bogged down with the individual effort of saving the individual. But I'm going to tell you what my imagination tells me, he said. It's possible that those men were afraid. You see, the Jericho Road is a dangerous road. That's right. I remember when Mrs. King and I were first in Jerusalem, we rented a car and drove from Jerusalem down to Jericho. And as soon as we got on that road, I said to my wife, I can see why Jesus used this as the setting for his parable. It's a winding, meandering road. It's really conducive for ambushing. You start out in Jerusalem, which is about 1,200 feet above sea level, and by the time you get down to Jericho, 15 or 20 minutes later, you're about 22 feet below sea level, and it's a dangerous road. In the days of Jesus, it became known as the Bloody Pass, and you know it's possible that the priest and the Levite looked over that man on the ground and wondered if the robbers were still around. Or it's possible they felt that the man on the ground was merely faking and he was acting like he'd been robbed and hurt in order to seize them and lure them for quick and easy seizure. And so the first question that priest asked, the first question the Levite asked was, if I stop to help the man, what will happen to me? But then the Good Samaritan came by and he reversed the question. He reversed the question. If I do not stop to help this man, what will happen to him? That's the question before you tonight, Martin Luther King Jr. told his audience. That's the question before you, the audience of this sermon, online or here. If you are in a situation in which you are concerned there is somebody over there being beaten up, and your question is, but what will happen to me? I will say this. Someone has manufactured vulnerability in your mind. Yes, maybe you should be dialing 911 instead of trying to break it up. But someone has manufactured vulnerability in your mind, some fear that you have to step away and cross the road. You cannot be the Good Samaritan in that situation. You need to listen to Martin Luther King Jr. if you cannot hear it in our UU principles. You need to treat each other with worth and dignity and respect. And indeed, the only way we will transform our vulnerable situation, our common vulnerable situation for the spreading of hate, is to be engaged, to write the letters, to call 911, to speak to our legislators about how we don't agree with the 14th time they put forward a bill that would take away somebody's rights. James Baldwin said, I imagine one of the reasons people cling to their hate so stubbornly is because they sense once hate is gone, they'll be forced to deal with pain. Do not be among those who let those folks avoid their pain. Speak up. Because there are people who are vulnerable and in a situation that's been manufactured to make them as vulnerable as possible. Thank you for listening. Our final hymn goes out to all, no matter what color your shadow, purple or blue or pink or yellow or red or brown, any color that you think your shadow is. Let's sing together hymn number 1053, How Could Anyone? Sorry, folks, I was trying to say, rotate back to the first slide. There we go. Thank you all for singing that out loud. Here in our closing is closing words from Kevin Jago, and I may have used this earlier on the vulnerability theme. If I forgot, you probably forgot too. It's worth reading again. When the candle dims, the wax almost spent, the light turns amber like a sunset. Still it provides light, still it provides heat, since it can kindle new flame and pass its glow on and contribute to new illumination. When sunsets turn to new days, when seasons transform all, when the candle dims, all is not lost. Hope continues, uncertain and true, like candlelight, ready to spark again. All is not lost. Though we extinguish this chalice, we bring that flame and this vision. With our love, may we be the Good Samaritans we're meant to be. Blessed be, amen.